is provided, an example is provided in the staff report. I would just note that the, both requests are kind of within that same motion. So if you're looking to go one way or the other with either of them, you'd have to tailor the motion accordingly. Also, it says that there's 1 through 5 conditions that should read 1 through 6. There are 6 conditions proposed by staff here.
So do you want one motion or two?
I think it's probably safer to just split them. But basically, you're recommending this application to the city council for a particular decision.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions of staff? Susan?
Nathan, this is a decrease in density.
Yes. Can you refer to a specific part of the staff report where that's potentially, okay.
I think she's giving you a grief.
Oh. I was like, did I get something wrong here?
No, sir, you didn't do anything wrong.
Thank you.
It's just unique. Were there any concerns that you had with the way that this would the triplex would mesh with those properties to the west? The 22, 4, 7, 5, 7, 7, 7, 9.
No, I don't know that this particular building would, were it 4 or versus 3, I don't think that there is necessarily going to be that much of a difference in terms of the impacts on those uses directly to the west.
Thank you.
Other questions? Mike?
So what exactly is the reason for the sidewalk removal?
So there's a couple reasons. One is that in the original PUD, part of the consideration for requiring the sidewalk was because the buildings were planned to have exits or entrances, walk-up entrances from the sidewalk. In a lot of cases here within the development, that building type style hasn't materialized, and they haven't been building those. The buildings haven't been designed with the walk-ups. So that's also the case here. They're not proposing a building that will have that walk-up, and thus they don't feel that they have a need for the sidewalk there.
Okay, and then my second question is, well, where would the sidewalk end then? In that, since it's coming around all the other properties, where's it gonna end?
Yeah.
What's it gonna connect to? And why?
So I would defer to the applicant on the specific segment of the sidewalk that they are proposing to remove. Understanding that, so I'll bring up the current site plan that we have. Here, I'm gonna switch it over again. Current site plan on file. All right, so they are showing a sidewalk which mirrors the original PUD, and then I would just invite the applicant to specifically detail which portion they are proposing not to install.
Yeah, my name is Dilip, I can speak.
Good, sir, if we could hold that for just a minute, sir, if we could hold that for just a minute in case there's other staff questions, and then we'll have the applicant.
I'm fine.
I'm good.
Good. Nathan, can you discuss, when you look at an earlier plat or proposal, it shows quite a bit of park spaces just to the south of those 3 units, and it seems that has been substantially reduced. If you put up your other picture from before.
Yeah, I can bring that up. It'll take a quick second here.
There, right there. So it looks like he's maybe, the applicant's looking to maybe put 3, it's 30 feet wide, 3 parking spots, maybe squeezing a 4th in there, instead of the maybe 10 or 12 that are there? Or am I missing something?
No, this proposal only shows the 3 stalls as they are indicated on the survey.
So we're also looking at a parking reduction then?
Yes.
I didn't notice that until you just had brought this picture up and zoomed it. Kevin?
It appears that original building was an eightplex, not a fourplex. And that's why the sidewalk goes all the way around, and that's why you have all the additional parking.
But as I remember that, this complex, the parking needs were integrated for the whole complex. One of the things that we've talked about recently is making sure that when we've had these higher density, shorter driveway, that there was some place so that at Thanksgiving or graduation or whatever, there were places for visitors to park. And with Gateway Green, the original thought was making sure that this was a higher density, it was a planned unit development, but one of the things that the city got was that we weren't gonna have folks parking on roads, that there was going to be parking integrated that would be shared throughout the complex.
Right, and they do have a challenge with parking over there
All right.
because of how many units are there.
We'll also ask the applicant on that. Other questions? Hearing none for now, we would invite the applicant to come up. You're more than welcome to spend a couple of minutes just explaining why you're proposing these changes. And then, as you can tell, the planning commission will have questions for you. So I ask you state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Dilip Cherlapalli. I'm the owner for the lots. I have a builder. He got injured, so he's calling in. I'm not sure if you can see him on the.
There is nobody on Zoom.
Okay, maybe he tried in a couple of minutes. Maybe he dropped off, but I can explain as much as I can. So two-part question is the first one regarding the sidewalk enveloping the building. As Nathan mentioned, the original plan is to have the back entrances for the adjacent houses so that the homeowners can get into the sidewalk right away and then walk around. Since there are different styles of the buildings and it got changed with the time, the type of building they're building in. So even the sidewalk, even if you put in, there is no use for it because not unnecessarily until you really want to go and walk in the sidewalk, it's not access from the building. So what we are proposing is we still keep the sidewalk instead of looping around in all 3 ways and wrapping the whole entire building. We will still keep the sidewalk on the east side so that sidewalk, even if the future homes buildings build the sidewalk, it still be connected on the east side of it. The only thing we are proposing to remove is on the back side, entire back of the building, and on the west side of the building. Those are the 2 pieces we are requesting to remove it, but we still have the sidewalk. We will still build the sidewalk on the east side so that in the future, other buildings build the sidewalk along with the building. We still have a connection point to this east side. Any questions on that?
Susan?
Again, the concept for the entire planned unit development was that it was going to be very walkable with loops of sidewalks around buildings. And so we're losing a big piece of the loop.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand that question. So what I'm thinking is, even if you build it, there is no connection. It actually dead end right there. It's not actually going anywhere. So
It would have gone through the parking lot and then be able to link up so that yeah.
yeah, so that's a good transition into the parking lot question you had before. So if you see, we went through different iterations with the previous city zoning Donovan, as well as the association. The requirement there is basically you have to have one parking lot for extra parking space for each unit, because based on the number of iterations this entire development has gone through. So we still meet that requirement for putting one extra space for each of the unit we are building. So we're building 3 units. we have at least minimum of 3 spaces there, along with the driveway requirements. The length of the driveway to each unit should still be able to be 20 feet as per requirements from Donovan. We still met those requirements. So there is an extra space for each unit, plus the driveway length of minimum 20 feet, and then the 2-car garage for each unit. That's went through association Donovan as well.
Where is the extra space?
Right in front of the building. I don't know if you can,
Talking right here?
yeah, if you see that, three parking spaces there. I don't know if that's clear enough. Maybe if you zoom in, you can see it. Maybe not.
It's on the west side, I believe.
No, right in front of the.
Right there. It's right there where the cursor is, I believe.
There's 3 extra parking stalls that are on the site plan here. This is where the little road dead ends.
Yeah, that's where Donovan is pointing out.
And the old one had 2.
Well,
No,
the
the
old
old
one had
one had-
about a dozen.
Old one had 8.
Yeah.
No, on the end it had 2. It had
Oh,
10
right,
down
right,
below.
right.
Yeah.
So a total of 12.
And the other thing, we talked to the city, not the city, the trash company, how they want to manure with the truck. And then they needed some space to get in and get out, as well as when there is a snow cleanup, they wanted some space to actually put the snow into one corner based on the snow season. And the other thing is the fire truck requirements from the city. We had to meet everything. So when you include all that and went through the Donovan's approval, plus the association approval for meeting these requirements.
So the snow is going to be piled where those 3 parking spaces are?
No, there is an extra space, right? Maybe to the side or to the end, another side, close to the building. I couldn't see from the picture here. So yeah, the space there is where we currently show the sidewalk that wraps into, and then that, between that, and then the extra space there, beyond the third car, the end parking space. That will be paved, all the area will be paved, either landscaped or driveway surface, basically.
So where on the picture, the sidewalk is going diagonal, you're essentially going to square that off to the building and it will all be paved?
Yes, basically, we have the driveway, right? Right from the driveway, the pavement starts. On the other side, we have the landscaping, lawn.
Are you replacing that diagonal sidewalk with pavement or with landscaping? And if you have landscaping, then that's not going to work for snow storage.
Yeah, we can, based on, builder is, I don't know if he's still there to answer this question, I'm not sure, but we can look into whatever is the city requirement, whether lawn or whether the surface, like a hard surface pavement. So whatever is the recommendation, I can talk to the builder.
Other questions? Mike?
So that the diagonal one on the left of the 3
Yeah.
buildings, you want to eliminate that altogether.
Yes, sir, that's what we're requesting.
Where's that sidewalk going to end?
That will,
On the top part where it goes horizontal behind the buildings.
yeah, where the cursor is right now, that's on the east side,
Commissioner?
that's going to end.
If I could just kind of sort of guide you on this map here with the cursor, the portion of the sidewalk that would remain with all the rest not being installed would be this portion on the east side of this building.
The other 2,
To answer your question,
one out.
right, the portions north of this proposed building
Yep.
and west would not be installed per the request of this applicant.
How is that sidewalk going to tie in then to the next development over?
So that was just one of the things that staff brought up is if the city is looking for future connections, those wouldn't be made because you wouldn't have a sidewalk here. That's just one of the things that was brought up in the staff report for consideration.
So because of 3 houses going in there, we're going to cut off the whole trail system for that area?
Aren't there houses across? Yeah, there's already
Yeah,
houses
so here's the
there.
existing conditions. What they're proposing to do is build three instead of a three-unit townhouse building instead of four. So that's their first request. The second request was not to install a specific portion of sidewalk that would run north of this building, east-west, and then the portion that would be west of the building. There was a comment in the staff report, what if potentially in the future at some point, not saying that there's a timeline or a plan for this at the moment, but what if there was a connection desired further west? That was really the nature of that comment.
That's kind of my question, is like, if they do put that in, then what? I mean, where's it gonna go? Behind those homes, they're gonna have to dig that up again and that area and then.
Well, yeah, I mean, if the city desired a trail connection, then
And who's gonna pay for that if the city requests a sidewalk in there?
if, at a later time, it would be potentially at the city's cost. I guess that would have to get explored at that time.
But at this time, we don't have an easement or we don't have any rights on the
No.
ones to the west there.
That's correct. That was only sort of, just a comment just to
Yep.
have consideration.
Well,
Yep.
And we're big on increasing our trails here and our sidewalks, so.
Ethan, it's been a while since I've been here. Are the 22, 475, 57, 55, are those constructed or not?
All of the, here,
Yes, sir.
those are built currently, yes.
Is there room between, I'm just gonna give you the last four, 75 and 57, the ones we're kind of talking about here? Is there enough room in there for a sidewalk with grass on each side and a fence for each house on each side?
Looks like it's already a cut through.
It looks like a walking path, but that
So if
very
we're gonna
point-
go lot to lot line, looks like there's 10 feet perhaps, or maybe a little bit less. The city standard trail, 7 here in this measurement, the city standard is 10 feet wide. For a trail that is
About 10
off-street.
feet on the back of their homes, and, there's plenty of room at the front, but I was just curious, if they put a, 8-foot sidewalk in there, you're looking at 2 feet to the house on the left and 2 feet to the house on the right. But that's down the road a ways, but I was just curious if we stop that whole trail.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate, there's not like a concrete plan for trail improvements here at this time. So that's sort of a consideration for the future. And I don't know what Public Works would have in terms of an opinion of a connection through there as well.
Those were my only questions, and like, why would they, I understand now why they want to do it, it's just it costs money. So they want to cut down the cost. But it's gonna cost the city a lot more 5 years down the road if they say, we need the sidewalk to come through to the other road. And very expensive after the fact.
Other questions for the applicant? Thank you. We may have more for you a little bit later.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. The way this will work is that we will open the public hearing. We will ask if anyone in attendance or online would like to speak to this application, to state your name, individually state you come up to the lectern, state your name and address for the record. Spend a couple minutes giving us your thoughts on this application. Once we have heard everyone who wishes to speak, we will close the public hearing and bring it back to the Planning Commission for a decision moving forward. So with that, we'll open the public hearing at 7:33 p.m. Does anyone wish to address this application? I'll ask again, does anyone in attendance wish to address this application? Abby, is there anyone online?
There is not.
Do we have any emails that need to be read into the record?
I don't have anything.
No, sir.
I'll take last call. Does anyone wish to speak to this application? Hearing no one and seeing no one come forward, we will close the public hearing at 7:34 PM and bring it back to the planning commission. Commissioners, further discussion, or what's your pleasure? Kevin?
And can you pull up a larger view of the Gateway Green neighborhood? I thought there was a park right in the middle of that neighborhood.
You have 3 parks in this neighborhood. There's a park sort of on the east and west side that are sort of symmetrical to each other and approximately the same size. And then you have a large center park.
Where is the closest, do we have any trails in that area along Everton or along the backside of that other development on Evergreen? Or are there any trails currently in there?
Talking about more in the greater region.
Yeah, I mean, I see that they want to do this sidewalk across the back of all those units. I guess my question is, I understand the reason that they originally put them in there. I understand they want to walk around the pond and stuff. But if there's okay, so the trail is the blue lines.
Yes.
So wouldn't it make more sense? I mean, I'm just thinking out loud. It almost like it makes more sense that you'd want to run the trail backwards to the north behind Wingate, behind those Wingate houses, versus along the backside of that pond or along the south side of that pond over to Evergreen. But I guess I'm not sure what this. I see there's some trails or sidewalks down off of Ethan or something. The one sidewalk makes sense on the east side of those buildings so they can come down to the parks. But if you're not going to be walking across the back, I don't even see a reason for that sidewalk. And none of those other buildings are built, right?
That's correct. So this is more or less the existing conditions right now. The lots both to the east and the south of this particular subject area have not yet been built.
So I think my question on top of Kevin's is what is the sidewalks planned behind these other houses? I mean, is it going on the north side of them and on the west side of them?
That's correct. So if you're following the cursor, you can see kind of an east-west blue line here, which indicates the sidewalk. That would continue traveling to the west, north of these buildings. And then in that original plan, it was proposed to loop down and connect in with the street here.
And how about those buildings to the south there that haven't been built? Is there sidewalk behind
There's
them?
actually no sidewalk proposed there. It's actually proposed along Lilac Way, so in front or to the east of those buildings.
Okay.
So if the sidewalk was on the east side like he's got proposed, it would tie in with the sidewalk going down the front of those buildings.
Yes, that's correct.
And it'd make more sense. Well, I guess it doesn't. Okay.
I can be okay with the 3 units. I think that is a product that will work well in Forest Lake. I can be okay with the sidewalk on the east side. I can't be okay with losing parking. This is gonna be, when all those are built, there is no parking going to be available. And again, as a PUD, the plan for the parking was integrated for the entire area, not just each individual building. And so I can go with, yes, I can feel comfortable about the request to remove the sidewalk from the north and west side. I can be comfortable with the threeplex, but I cannot be comfortable with removing parking from the original PUD that was approved.
Went from 12 to 9, or, okay,
12 to 3.
12 to 3.
Right, because the parking was in addition
Oh, for
to
the
whatever
extra
was in a
lot,
driveway.
okay, all right.
And this area, you're right, there are challenges there. All right, and so I can't accept reducing the parking from what was planned.
And yeah, that is pretty excessive. It's
Mike?
Susan hit it before I got a chance to talk about it, but I agree. Their original plans were 10 plus 2 plus 4 driveways. So that's 16 total parking spots. The new one has 3 spots and 3 driveways. So even if you put, double up on the spaces, it's only 9. So you're going from 16 to 9 parking. Can you pull up the new parking area on the south side of those buildings? Because the old one, I've got it right here. And that's also going to some of the overflow from those buildings on the east side. I think it's the last 3 are 106 and 160. But the way this new one is here, there's only 3 parking spots at the end of that street. There's nothing on the street where they had 10 parking spots before.
We allow these streets to be narrower than normal as part of the PUD? I'm sorry, I'm trying to pull things up out of the depths of my memory.
I don't know the answer to that question, but yeah, we can find it. We can look for it.
So we're basically eliminating 7 parking spots for that whole area. Well, it's 16 and before, and now it's 9.
Not counting the driveways.
Well, I was counting the driveways as before 1, because they were narrow, and now they're a little wider, so I'm putting 2 in there. There's only 3 spots on the street. So those 6 plus 3 is, to me, it's 9. And before there was 16.
Nathan, could you pull that map back up of the whole area again? So it looks to me like fourplexes, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. They're not really selling. They're probably gonna want to get redesigned as well. What's likely someone's gonna want to do with that? Triplexes like this?
And
Wait,
where
Or
are you gonna put them?
duplexes side by sides?
Once the new driveway's in, where are you gonna put them? You can't.
Yeah, I mean, if they went down to duplexes where there's just 2 units, there would be plenty of parking. Allowed that to happen. If they went to triplexes like what we're doing with this building, short a few spaces, but we'd be reducing the spaces. But we don't know what's gonna happen with those.
And that's my concern. This is all gonna come in piecemeal, piecemeal, piecemeal. And if we aren't thinking about the big picture and the what ifs, and there's already parking challenges in this area. I don't want to set ourselves up to be behind.
Can the applicant come up and talk a little bit about the undeveloped area and the loss of parking?
When you say undeveloped area, can you little more?
You have, all of the green area there has not been built yet, right?
Yeah, those are the only 4 lots that I have. I don't know anything about the other pieces.
You only own these 4 lots?
Yeah, that's the only thing I have, yeah.
Okay, so you're not part of the master plan?
I'm sorry.
It's not part of the master plan?
No, we can kind of look at some of these lots here. You can kind of see that there's a few different owners. Typically they own, I'm just kind of going over, this is all information that's available through Washington County. You can see this Tribella Properties is an owner of several of the clusters of these.
Tribella, the owners of the ones that we're looking at right now currently, or?
So the applicant here this evening, he owns the subject property here that you've been looking at. Tribella Properties LLC appears to be the owner of some of these other future townhome buildings.
The other thing is, maybe I want to bring it up because I don't know. I don't know if the fire truck, the turning radius requirements has changed. What we need now versus what was there before. I think that's the other challenge we had to encounter because we had to shrink down. We revised the plan 3 times or 4 times because we had an issue with the turning radius. What was actually put in is not working now as designed. So we have to shrink everything down, building footprint to make this to work. and then we had to redraw surveys several times. And this is where we finally landed to make everything work. So I just want to bring it up because all the challenges we went through to get here.
So Nathan, the 12 parking spots that we're discussing are they on this parcel that he owns?
They'd be in the commonly owned area that you can see here that's highlighted on the screen. That's the Gateway Green Community Association.
And there
They're
is,
not in his, it's
They're-
not part of his.
They're not, I mean, they're not technically part of this townhome unit. They're not on a lot that he owns. It's in the commonly owned area.
So who would be responsible for putting that in then?
Well, the applicant is responsible for what you see here on the survey in terms of developing this. The parts that are not on the actual townhome lots, those are owned by the HOA.
So the lots are just the building footprint in this case?
Yeah, correct, yes. So they include, and I'll kind of zoom in. It's on this map, it's this like kind of bold black line here. Zoom in just a little
So
bit.
is the HOA then responsible for the sidewalks and the extra parking spots and extra pavement in front of these buildings? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, they own and maintain them.
So then why is
the
he
cost would
asking
be
about
on-
the sidewalk?
The requirement has been for the abutting properties to install the sidewalk as this development gets built.
And that would include that road coming in with the extra parking?
Yes.
All right.
So he is responsible.
He is
for that
responsible.
parking.
Even though he did.
He's responsible for providing it, but ultimately will not.
Right,
The homeowners
installation.
association is the ultimate, they'll be responsible for maintenance.
But he's responsible for installation of it.
That's correct, with the project, yep.
Okay.
So as I mentioned before, so we went through the association for landscaping, parking, sidewalks and everything. Once they approved with all the changes they wanted, we went through the previous zoning personnel in the city and then talked to Nathan once he got in. So we made several changes to make everybody happy with that, so.
But the homeowners association are folks that are living there now. And what we are responsible and accountable for are not only the folks that are living there now, but in the future.
Sure.
And so as we think about how the rest of this is going to develop, if we say, okay, you can have just 3 parking spaces instead of what was originally planned, then the next one's going to come in and the next one's going to come in, and y'all are going to have really nice, or somebody's going to have nice houses, but they can't have any family over. And this is a problem that we've had in several other areas, and I would like to learn from my mistakes.
Mike?
Well, from what I did a quick measurement here, and with the new, going from 4 to 3, of parking on the street net, they've eliminated 100 feet of street parking on that south side. 100 feet. That's a lot for parking. I think there's a little room for adding. Because they've got the new, where it says Lilac Alcove, how it curves around. You look at the old print, the parking lot starts at the east side of the building and goes all the way to the west side of the building, plus the parking spots. With the new spot, the parking on the street actually starts more towards the west third of the middle triplex. So you get from the house on the east to 2/3 of the house in the middle, it's all grassy area now instead of parking. Do you see where I'm talking about?
No, I understand, sir. Yeah, so at the same time, like the requirements with the fire truck has changed, so I think there's a fire hydrant, I don't know if you see from the pictures. There's a fire hydrant right in front of the house, these proposed buildings. And where the existing road stops, not on the survey map, maybe if you look into the aerial view, maybe you can see it.
Oh, I see, yeah, I see it.
Yeah, so other challenge we had is with the fire truck turning radius, we can't really have the road as proposed to get all the spots because the turning radius is more now. So to keep the fire hydrant where it is, we have to cut down the,
Fire hydrant is not in the
No.
way at all. Either plant, it's not in the way.
right,
So
so to
we're
turning,
not- we're not worried about the fire hydrant.
yeah, the turning radius is more now, seems to be than what it was before.
What turning area are you talking about? Going into the,
Yeah, from where the road stops right there. And if you see on the map there on the screen.
So they can get in front of the 22 of the 32 unit. The truck can get in front of 32.
I'm not sure which picture you are seeing, madam, or,
so entering the complex, like you're on the road
Yeah.
down by the fire hydrant and you're heading north and you turn west or left to go into the parking lot. Then you've got 75 feet and then it just kind of curves back down. You have no parking there, correct? On the south end of that parking lot, you don't have one parking spot.
I can't see from that picture, but are you referring to the original picture?
There's an area, so if you're looking at the screen, I think what the commissioner is referring to is this particular area that the cursor is circling.
Okay,
Obviously there appears to be some difference between,
Yeah, that whole, what do you call it, that corner has been, it went from, maybe 10, 12 feet up to 100 feet.
Why does it have to be there?
What?
What?
Why would it have to be that big?
Why would it have to even be there? It wasn't,
Exactly.
right.
Exactly, it could just, the way they have it on the first diagram, I could see, the little indentation there for, for the grass and stuff to show, this is the parking lot, this is the road. But the newest one is, it's huge and there's no parking. I just wanted to point that out.
Sorry, Nathan, could you pull up that neighborhood view again? So Lilac Way is gonna go up between 2356 and 22366, those two buildings. And there'll be a two-spot parking at the end of that, the way it looks like on the sketch I see. That continues up Drive 4, you calling it. If that road continues all the way up to the end by the sidewalk, it looks like on the little sketch that's in the packet, there's a place for 2 extra cars to park up there. Plus you got the driveway parking for that building. And on the other side of that building, which would be off of, if it's Lilac Way, you got an extra couple of spots there. It looks to me like those 10 spots are just for this one building that we're looking at. It doesn't look like it's for the neighborhood. Was that originally a 4-plex building or was that an 8-plex? The building that we're looking at right now.
It was platted as a 4.
So it was a 4. So at that point, they would need to have 2, 4, 6, 8, and 12 spots total. Is that correct?
spots per
unit,
unit.
plus, that's it?
Plus guest parking.
Plus guest parking, so that was where the other 4.
Typically, that's about a half stall.
Yeah,
per-
so
per
that,
unit.
all that parking was just for that one building. It wasn't for any other buildings. So if we reduce the units in that building to 3, we really we only need 2, 4, 6, 9. And we'll have 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we're not really losing parking. We are losing parking, I take that back, for the whole neighborhood, but it really wasn't designed for the whole neighborhood, I don't think. The way I see this parking, it was just designed for that building, because each of the other buildings has spots in the driveway, plus the extra 2 spots for guests by each building.
So each building has 4 spots.
Correct.
On the ones on
In
the,
addition.
on the east side.
That's the
Yeah,
way it's designed.
Yeah,
it
the
looks like.
driveway and 2.
Yeah.
On the other side, the driveways and 2.
And 2, yeah. And so I don't see where we're losing any additional spots, really. Well, we are, but that was really designed just for that building. And if we're gonna have less units in that building, we don't need as many spots, but I know what you're saying, Susan.
Long ago and far
I said
away.
It
the-
was
the
a long
GPS,
time
So
ago.
more time on the,
I remember, yeah. That was,
for,
And
zoom out a
the-
little bit. I'm curious on the area, kind of how it.
because two, two,
down in
three,
the-
354 and 22352, do we have a sketch of where their parking was supposed to be? Was it just supposed to be between the garages, or were they supposed to share part of that 12?
So you can see in the staff report, there's sort of there's a drive that goes south of those buildings. It did look like it had 2 stalls.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Extra. Yeah, it looks like it has the 2 extras out there as well. Those were only 2-unit buildings.
So Kevin, educate me on these other 8 units to the east of the development we're talking about.
Yeah.
Where are they gonna have all their extra parking?
So they have, the ones directly to the east, it looks to be that the road comes up between, for example, 22364 and 22366. The road comes all the way up to where basically the back sidewalk would be.
Okay,
And then there's 2 additional parking spots back there. And then you have the parking in the driveways. So if you look at this sketch, the road goes up, you got 2 spots back there, and then they have their additional in the driveway. Same on this side, you go up, you got the 2 back here in the driveway. This one here, you got the 2 here, and you got the 2 here. So these were all, looks to me appears that these were all just for this building. But I could be wrong.
it's kind of
that-
scary. We
that looks
already got
right.
cars parked in the places that ain't developed.
Yeah, but well, because it would, to me, it seems like these guys wouldn't be parking over here. That's why they have these guest spots.
but I don't see that Lilac Way is getting paved, or that road is getting paved north.
Not until someone develops those 4 units.
I doubt it will happen even then.
Would they, how would they access 22366 or 22364 if there wasn't a road going there? The drive. Well, according to this sketch, this road continues up to the parking. The road continues all the way up. Road comes and goes up.
Right. But
I mean, Nathan, wouldn't that be correct that there would be a road eventually coming Lilac up between 22366 and 23, yeah, it's on this
So you
sketch,
have-
drive 4.
You'd have a drive that goes up that provides it access to, you'd have a townhome unit here with a garage stall within. So you,
North of there would be 2 additional parking spots. I think when you look at your sketch from,
yeah, I mean, 2 to 4 based on the site plan that was originally approved.
Shows drive 4 going up.
hopefully none of us will be around to mediate the parking wars there.
Mike, did you have a
Well, I
question?
agree. I've been
Yeah,
over there and it does
Nate-
need more parking.
Nathan, I was wondering if you could pull up the map you have right now, just kind of expand out in that Lilac Way area to see like where's their present extra parking? Because if there's none anywhere else, then I don't see a reason to put extra parking there.
I mean, there's not, you can see that the precedent here in this development is that primarily the parking for each of these townhome units is provided by the actual townhome. In terms of visitor parking, folks may be using some of these stalls that are abutting the parks. For example, this is an apartment building here. and you can
Underground
see
parking
there's
there.
street parking there. There is underground parking that serves that particular building. If we go kind of north here, you can see some of the precedent for the other units in this development. Again, primarily served by by the driveways and the garages that are within these units. So not a ton of additional parking here, as you can see as I kind of scroll through. There is a pocket over here on the southeast corner of the development. You can see a few extra stalls of parking. Most of the offsite parking is is kind of abutting those parks, abutting the buildings.
'Cause it's not allowed on the street, if I remember right.
Yeah, I've been over there.
It's not supposed to, right?
Okay.
Park right there. Parking is a challenge, I 100% agree.
I will point out that we are being asked to, a request here for the actual parcel to reduce it from 4 units to 3, and then to eliminate some sidewalk. And we took quite the left turn on parking because it looks like we may or may not be losing some. We're not really sure based on the drawings we have. So unless there's something we can do about it as a planning commission, I think we need to just address the 2 items that we have this evening, which is the removal of the sidewalk to the north and the west, and to reduce the buildings from 4 to 3.
I believe that we are being asked to amend the PUD. And that amendment to the PUD, even though what's called out in the staff report are the 4 to 3 and the sidewalk, amendment to the PUD also shows a change in the parking. I'm very comfortable going from 4 units to 3. I'm very comfortable with the request of the sidewalk. But as this PUD outline is, and that is what was negotiated with, you know, the whole thing was changed for the turning radiuses and that's, it is not enough parking there.
Is it necessary for that alcove to be there in order to achieve a turning radius?
I don't think it really matters. It's, if they're just making the whole area smaller, it's not up to me. I really don't care.
Does that matter that the alcove is there or not to the turning radius?
I don't know that I can specifically answer that question. That's sort of in the fire chief, kind of his area of expertise. I also don't know what conversations were had before working with this particular applicant, as this request was made with the previous zoning administrator. So doing some research in terms of what the conversation had been leading up to this point is something that I would obviously anticipate doing prior to providing the staff report to the city council. So I don't have those answers, unfortunately, right now for the planning commission.
Obviously, a little bit of a curve there for the, I don't know, I mean, it's limiting parking by having that big, like you said.
Well, I just brought it up because the 2 plans are completely different, you know, from 4 to 3, the sidewalk, and then the parking got changed and stuff. So that, I think that's why it was brought up by Sharon, myself, and anybody else. And I realize we're just voting on that one section, but it was kind of like all came in together. You know, housing, sidewalks, parking.
Yeah, well, and I agree. I think one leads to another logically, so I think it has
So
to be
we
discussed.
just want to make sure before.
Yeah,
Well, you know, we've had some administrative staff change. There's clearly an unknown of what the parking should have been. So I will make a motion to table this to allow the city further time to get us some answers on the parking and exactly what should transpire. So that's my motion, is to table this for this evening.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. It's not a debatable motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. So, sir, what we did tonight is we've just basically postponed the decision until we can get a little information more on this parking and whatnot. It sounds like there's no problem with going from 4 units to 3 units. A little debate still on the sidewalk and a further trail, but and I would think that this would come back to us whenever the city is ready.
We'll look into it as soon as we can. If it's possible to put this on the next planning commission meeting, that would be my goal. Obviously, understanding the applicant does have a timeline that they're working on to develop, so.
So is it help like the confirmations or the communication we had with the previous zoning administration regarding the parking? Is that help? I should be able to pull all the documentation with the, no, okay.
No, I think what would help is if you could come up with another idea where you could get some more parking.
So, yeah. No, I understand, sir, I understand. So going through the survey, how it's laid out with the hydrant and everything, so we made number of iterations to get here, so I understand your point, definitely.
And the city's easy to work with. They'll work with you day in and day out,
Thank you, sir.
whatever you need.
Thank you.
We'll be in
Thank you
touch
very
with you.
much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you for your time. Item 7, 794 15th Street Southwest. It's the Wilcott property, the site plan amendment. Nathan, are you presenting?
Yep, and I'm just gonna leave this here on the screen just for now. This is sort of just a visual. I'm gonna kind of walk through the staff report here, and I'll stop at the after for questions. So as an overview, this property is located at 794 15th Street Southwest. The Planning Commission is looking at a site plan amendment application. The purpose of this site plan amendment is to revise this site to bring it into a conformance with city standards. This property is zoned B3 limited industrial business with an aligned future land use. So the applicant for this particular request is Randy Wilcox, who owns an auto dealership in town. This site is associated with that auto dealership. It is currently the location of a detailing center that serves the auto sales business. So the applicant purchased this property a couple years ago and has since made a number of improvements. Some of those improvements had not received a formal city approval. And so one of those improvements was the installation of a fence on the property. That fence did receive a conditional use permit last fall. The other piece of the improvements on this property that did not receive the required city approval was basically the reworking of the parking on site. And so what you see here are basically the conditions that are currently present on site. There's an improved drive surface that leads back to both of the existing buildings on this site. These buildings were there previously. Simply the parking is what the area that was improved without going through the site plan process. So that's why we're here. City staff identified this, and the applicant has worked with city staff in order to come up with a site plan that will meet the city requirements for this particular use. So I'm going to scroll now to the proposed conditions here. Oops, okay, so hopefully everyone can see this. So there's a number of different improvements that will be proposed here to bring the site within city standards. One is the marking of the parking stall locations in addition to the marking of those required handicap stalls. Another is the provision of curbing along the southern portion of the site. That curbing will ultimately direct stormwater to a future stormwater infiltration basin. This was required by the watershed for this site to meet the watershed rules as well. So the applicant has worked with the watershed and city to address the improvements that were previously made and bring them into conformance. So the applicant is actually in receipt of a permit from Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District, and the improvements here have been reviewed by the city engineer, who did provide a memo on this particular request with some comments on it. One of the questions that staff received in advance was, we're seeing curbing provided on the south of this site, but not along the north. And part of the answer to that is the curbing the primary function of that is to guide stormwater to where it's supposed to go on the site. And most of the drainage on this site kind of goes from, we'll call it the northwest corner down to sort of the center of the southern portion of the site. And that is actually where that future stormwater basin will be located. So curbing would not serve a particular function. Actually, upon review, if it were installed in the north and the west corner here. So that was not required by the city's engineer. Another question that we had received is with respect to, there is a billboard located on this site. There is actually still an easement over an area which would be used by the owner of the rights to that billboard to access it. It's not anticipated that easement will change with the improvement of this drive surface. So that's really all I have for you with respect to staff review. If you have questions for me, I'm happy to take those. I did provide a staff recommendation in the report with a few conditions proposed for approval. Happy to take any questions.
Kevin?
Nathan, when they made somehow or another, the hard surface was installed without coming for application, do you know, on these type of properties, are those hard surfaces supposed to be put in under certain requirements? Does the driveway itself have to be a certain thickness, or there's supposed to be a certain underlayment under it? You know, do we have certain restrictions when those hard surfaces are put in?
Yeah, so actually, we do have the applicants. I believe, are you the applicant's engineer? He is here to take questions.
Okay.
My understanding would be that it would behoove them to provide that type of surface, because if they don't, then it's just going to degrade really fast.
So their thought is, we're talking about removing that and then reinstalling it?
No, I think what's actually here, what's being proposed to bring the site into conformance is actually to, I'm going to bring this up, to modify what you can see, kind of the extent of the actual pavement will remain, but the modifications will be made to bring it into conformance with city code. So the curbing is one specific standard for this particular use that is required. So that was communicated by the engineer in terms of where.
So my question is, my question is, when that surface was put in without a permit, was it put in according to the standards that we require for a commercial property? In terms of the thickness, the underlayments, that sort of stuff, or was it just a 2 inches or 3 inches of asphalt poured over some dirt?
No, I actually don't know the pavement thickness here. I wonder if perhaps the applicant would be able to address that question.
Okay, thank you.
Mike?
Nathan, that northwest corner you were pinpointing to, is that already blacktopped?
That's correct. In the existing conditions right now, that is blacktopped.
And is it sloping towards that way? Does anybody check that?
Generally speaking, the slope, if you're kind of looking at the cursor here on the screen, is going to kind of go this direction based on what we know to be the contours in this area.
So this whole parking lot and driveway was all put in without any permits?
That's correct.
Fence was put in without permits?
That's correct.
How do you get a CUP approved after the fact? Who approves something like that? I mean, it didn't come to us.
Yes, it did.
Yeah,
After the fact, remember, that's how we caught the fence.
No, that's where, that was addressed through, the fence was addressed through the conditional use permit that was approved by the city. The actual site was altered, and so that does require a site plan amendment as well. And so that's why we're here with this particular request, is to.
So the CUP was approved before they put the fence up?
That's not correct. But the CUP was approved after the fact. Yep, because it was addressed to the applicant, identified to them.
That's what I thought. They were here for something else, and we
No, there was an inspection and a complaint about the fence. And when the city went out to
it
take a
came to
look.
us, correct?
Correct. It ended up in our, eventually, yes.
Did the fence ever get moved?
Uh,
The CUP approved
They
that, then
received
it
the
stayed right
approval
there?
to have the fence in the location with the material and the height that it was built with.
I don't remember when that came before the planning
I think
commission.
that was last year.
We voted in favor of.
October 27th, 21.
Thank you, Susan. In October of 2021, the planning commission approved a recommended approval, I believe. Fence. Other questions of staff? Hearing none, I understand a representative from the applicant is here. If you could come up, state your name and address for the record. If you want to spend a couple minutes, what the plan is, that'd be great. Otherwise, we'll just fire away with questions, whichever way you prefer to do it.
Sounds good. I'm Bob Wiegert with Paramount Engineering, and we prepared the plans for you, and it's submitted as part of the request for city approval. And I think let's start with the drainage, if you want to pull up the grading plan versus the site plan. Sheet 1.
One here, sheet 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So just some quick background. Mr. Wilcox owns the Chevrolet dealership, the Jeep dealership, and the Dodge dealership on the other side of the freeway, and had been doing his detailing, which is getting the new cars prepared to pass on to the buyers. And he purchased this property, which was, my understanding, vacant buildings with gravel surface, to do his detailing there. Because if you've been to those dealerships, there are absolutely no room for visitors. There's so many vehicles in those 3 dealerships over there. And he's done numerous projects over the years and relied on his contractor to gather the appropriate approvals and permits. And that didn't happen in this case, so he's apologized for that, and is working with the watershed, which Nathan's correct, we did receive watershed board approval, and working with the city to get those approvals. And the conditions prior to receiving blacktop is the site was gravel surface, and obviously that wouldn't work well with the detailing that he's going to be doing and providing new cars. So they went ahead and blacktopped it. My understanding, and we weren't involved at that point, my understanding is he freshened the gravel and installed your typical 2 to 3 inches of blacktop surfacing. So that's as much as I know about the bringing it up to city standards. Regarding the drainage, the site does drain north to south and discharged into a wetland all these years. And the watershed obviously required a permit. So a stormwater basin has been proposed there to intercept runoff water off the parking lot before it does discharge into the wetlands. So that'll provide, not getting into the weeds here too much, but rate control, sorry about that, and water quality treatment for the runoff water. So that's where we are today, and obviously I'm here to answer any more questions that might arise.
Sheriff Siren. Where is our tornado shelter, sir?
I don't know.
Quick question, is your water structure, is it a detention facility or is it designed as a retention facility?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Is it designed as a detention facility or a retention facility?
It's detaining.
Thank you.
Other questions of the applicant?
Are there any like future developments planned for this area? Any more buildings, structures?
Not that I'm aware of.
Other questions? Thinking we may have some.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate you coming this evening.
My pleasure.
This is a site plan amendment, but does not require a public hearing.
Can I ask, what are we gonna do here about the?
Yeah.
There's a big cell coming.
I understand Pat, or the city administrator has just left the room, I presume he's working on finding an answer for the
Okay.
planning commission.
Yeah, look at it, I'm further from the window, so I'm good.
Buys my wife and kids here a second, if you don't mind.
Want to,
What?
you want to make sure that your lady knows about tornado siren?
Let who know?
Your lady, your family.
Oh, she knows.
Okay. The last time I had a tornado warning in this city was also going to a planning commission meeting, Hill City Hall. Are you looking for a motion, sir?
Either discussion or a motion. Tonight, the motion would be a recommendation to city council. They have the final word on that. Hearing no further discussion, I would think a motion would be very appropriate.
Mr. Chair, I recommend the site plan amendment requested. And I'm going to recommend that the city council approve this, subject to conditions 1 through 3 proposed in staff, and also subject to the completion of the water management structures.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Hearing none, call the question. All those in favor saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Before we go on to item number 8, maybe Mr. Casey would like to enlighten us.
No confirmed tornado, but a very strong weather system about 20 minutes away in Anoka County. Fire department and department are aware, and we will have a fire personnel in the building shortly in case they will show us where to go. That is into the police department.
We don't have to go to the holding cells.
Could be the most strong, I don't know.
They're not very big.
They're bigger than the old ones.
All right, well, since we have 20 minutes, we will continue on. Item 8 is the wetland bank moratorium discussion. And I believe here, we are looking for a recommendation to, or just kind of a nod, yeah, we're good or not?
This is more of a discussion item, just to put this on the planning commission's radar. I just want to make a really quick note that both of these two items, if the planning commission is concerned, could be tabled for a future meeting. That being said, this wetland discussion is really just a discussion. It's to provide a little information, so I can provide that here for you. So recently it did come to staff.
Before you start, Nathan, is there an opinion from the planning commission on what we should do? Or
How long is this discussion gonna last?
It doesn't have to be that long. The next item might be a little longer, to be
10 minutes,
completely
10
honest.
minutes?
You want to be on the road?
No, I
Justin, do
might
you
wanna
need to
be in a
roll?
different room.
If possible, I think the preference is to get this item discussed or at least mentioned to the planning commission, but
Sure.
the next one.
We can always table 9.
I might need to go. I just, with my wife, we just had a baby, of course, here. Last month, we got 4 kids at home, and she might need my help because they're freaking out, I guess, from what she said, so I apologize.
no problem.
Family comes first.
That's right. Thank you for attending this evening.
Yeah, sorry, I missed the previous neighborhood thing. I missed that.
That's right. Might still be up
Drive
there.
careful.
No, the last of them just left.
We were up there for a while.
They were.
It's windy out.
Thanks, yeah, so-
Okay, Nathan, we'll
Okay.
move forward.
Yep, so continuing on. So it was brought to staff's attention that there is interest or has been interest in creating wetland banks in the city. After a review, staff determined that wetland banks are not listed as a permitted or a conditional use in any permit within, in any district, apologies, within the city. So staff has kind of discussed the impacts of allowing wetland banks within the city and is suggesting additional review through a study that would ultimately be decided on by the city council. So for your information, wetland banks are effectively they're off-site wetlands. These are created by developers to offset wetlands that are created by developments elsewhere. So for example, when we see these large subdivisions come in, these residential subdivisions that are going to be impacting wetlands.
Sorry, guys, that's my phone just going crazy. Excuse me.
When we see subdivisions come in with impacts to wetlands, the watershed is requiring mitigation. And when the watershed requires mitigation, effectively, these developers are required to, in some cases, to pay to purchase credits from watersheds. These credits are created by a developer actually creating a wetland bank offsite. So that's what a wetland bank would do here is you'd be taking high ground, this is developable dry area, and permanently turning that into a wetland. So that cannot be undone. You cannot unclassify it from a wetland. Importantly, yeah, that's kind of the important piece here is that it's a permanent thing. Therefore, to help to mitigate any potential concern, suggesting a study, and so that was presented to the city council. City council has indicated that they're interested in moving forward with this. An interim ordinance, otherwise known as a moratorium, would be presented to the city council in addition to a resolution that would authorize a study. So a study doesn't have to be a whole year, but that's the time frame in which the staff would be allowed to do so.
Nathan, we've had developers bank out of, when they've built here, as I recall, they've gone out of Forest Lake, I think out of Washington County, probably. I think they all go to Chisago. Or,
Some of them do.
so what we're looking at then is that allowing, all right, due to the current weather conditions, the chair will take a recess and we'll be back when we are clear to resume the meeting.
Okay, head towards the police department.
I knew I was gonna end up going to jail one of these days. Just didn't think it was gonna be today.
And we leave the doors open just in case somebody's.
I can tell there's
Well, yeah. Fake it. No, in fact,
Kelly's still on?
In fact, when I was first appointed, Susan was still on city council.
Through that.
Oh my goodness, I'm tired.
I think it was like 2011.
Wednesdays are long already and you throw that in there?
I would say you take your time coming over.
I would like to. I'm gonna leave
for
early.
turn from
I'm saying
recess.
we got kindergarten open
And I'm going to
house
open the
tomorrow,
meeting.
Then a touch a truck
Boring
event.
now.
You know, activity might be greater than.
There we go.
I don't know about getting home, but I'll bring, you know what, I bring my computer home. Crazy. I think you can resume it whenever you're ready.
All right, we will resume the meeting at 9:13. The chair would like to make a motion to modify the agenda and to remove item 9 until a future meeting.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So we'll finish up the wetland bank and then do our other.
But just realize that may not be the 25th, because it already sounds like the 25th is going to be a long one.
Potentially, yeah, so we'll look at the agendas and I'll defer to Abby on loading them up.
You shouldn't say that with such a smile on your face. All right, we are on the discussion part of the moratorium on wetlands. Were there questions? Do we want a little better review again from Nathan to bring us back to speed after our recess due to the poor weather?
Quick question, Nathan, on, you're going to do a study. What is your study going to be looking at? Is it going to be
Yep.
potential need? Is it going to be locations? Is it going to be value? What are you studying?
The question is whether or where the city should permit this use. So the purpose of the study is to help understand and identify where in the city a wetland bank may fit if it is to be permitted in the city as a use anywhere. So that's the purpose of the study, is to kind of figure out, okay, this use may be able to fit in certain districts, may not be suitable in other districts, present those findings to the city in order to make an informed decision about whether to permit them. Or I guess.
Will this also include what other cities are doing or allowing?
Yeah, I mean, yes. So it's specific to the city of Forest Lake because obviously the city has its own land use controls, but certainly we'll take into consideration what policies other cities may have for wetland banks.
And you're going to do an economic analysis also? Because this will, I'm guessing that Washington County taxes those banks at a very, very low rate, as opposed to what the city could recover in taxable value.
Yeah,
without the bank.
certainly a good question, and something that the study can consider is what is the opportunity cost of allowing wetland banks to be developed?
And would you expect that you would, if you allowed them, you would put them in areas where in the next 60 years, we wouldn't be planning on developing anyway?
Yeah, certainly another good question. So considering what areas are going to be served by perhaps MUSA boundaries in the near future, what is the future land use guidance for particular areas, and what's the expectation for how those areas develop? All certainly very important parts of the analysis.
One thing just to note, it might not have been caught before our recess, but Nathan did mention that once a wetland bank is created, that's it's lifelong. It's its eternal designation. So I think it's really part of that study is really figuring out, is there land suitable? Where is that land suitable forever? So.
That would be out where I live.
These wetland banks, is there a minimum acreage Or going to be a maximum acreage, or is that part of the study?
To make it, well, to make a wetland bank workable from a financial perspective, they do have to be rather large, because you wouldn't go into a small site to create a wetland, go through the whole construction, there is a period where they're under observation and they're not quite a wetland yet under formal classification, but they're getting there. So you don't go through that entire process on a small site, so naturally these uses would tend to be on rather large tracts of land.
Other questions? Are you just looking for a straw vote here for in
Well,
favor of this?
we don't necessarily need any determination from the planning commission, but I think the questions that Commissioner Young was asking are helpful in order to help staff kind of provide some additional analysis if that's desired in the study, or basically what questions do you have for staff? What comments do you have? Those are the types of things that we're kind of interested in here.
Will we see this throughout the process for an update, or?
Certainly, the study would be brought to the planning commission.
I-
This does impact, obviously, the city's zoning control, so obviously.
I have no problem with it.
I've got another question, Nathan. As I was talking to Patrick, as we look at our downtown study, if there are certain kinds of build sizes and heights of buildings in our downtown redevelopment, the study that your firm did says we'd probably be okay. But other redevelopment in the downtown area or along Broadway or down Lake Street, that may require. Will your study also provide an evaluation of areas of development slated in the next 20 years where that development would most likely need bank credits?
So if I understand the question correctly, it's, do we have an anticipated need for wetland mitigation in future development?
As we look at our 2040 plan, where we are going to be looking at development, just as you all project, where am I going to need water lines, where am I going to need sewer lines, where are the areas where if they're going to develop it, it's going to need wetland credits. What is give me an idea of how big that issue is going to be.
Okay. I guess just off the cuff here as a response, and certainly you can consider this further later, but a lot of the unbuilt land that's currently just sort of green raw land, a lot of that in the city that's left does have wetlands on it, especially the land that is classified, that we've been reviewing for some of these residential subdivisions. A lot of that, as you've seen, has wetlands on it. If we turn the wetland layer on an aerial map, you're going to see wetlands spread all over, and so certainly
We're almost Lindstrom.
a lot of water.
Yeah.
So
The DNR, do they have any say-so in this? I mean, do they not care that we have these wetland banks, you can just go in and basically fill in wetlands and then build what we want, and then the wetland is designated someplace else?
want to answer this?
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll take a crack at it, and if you have something to add, please do. Actually, the watershed districts are the ones that are really concerned with wetlands and wetland mitigation. They're the ones that are reviewing the plans for how developments will mitigate wetlands. And so they do require, for example, in some cases, purchasing of credits to offset impacts. That being said, the types of wetlands that are being impacted on developments are also very important. Some wetlands that are considered to be really high functioning, or you can see open water and they're clearly like very valuable wetlands. Those in some cases aren't allowed to be impacted. So again, really depends on the nature of the development, what wetlands are proposed to be impacted, et cetera.
The watershed does have some say-so.
Yes, and not necessarily in the city's land use controls, but they're certainly part of the conversation about wetland mitigation. So really what the city is deciding is, number one, with this moratorium is there's going to be a pause on this particular use for up to a year. And the city will be deciding whether to permit this use through further study.
Why would we need a moratorium if it's not allowed already?
I'm not sure that's unclear.
Oh, that it's allowed or not
It's,
allowed?
yeah,
I
it's
see.
not really expressly listed as a use in the city's code, and to get ahead of any potential requests for this, understanding that it's permanent, that's why a study and a moratorium are being suggested.
How about wetland banks versus parkland? Are they totally gonna be separated, or are they gonna try and incorporate, like, instead of parkland, we're doing this wetland and open space?
Yeah, they're considered to be separate. Wetlands and parks are separate, and even in developments, when they're coming in, you cannot accept wetlands as parkland, so they're really pretty separate.
But it's kind of like parkland dedication in a way where you're either putting in a park land for dedication or you're giving money.
Yeah, I guess functionally speaking, the mechanics of it are pretty similar. The land is, I guess, the purpose of the land is viewed differently.
The last thing is that Forest Lake often gets a rap as it being a difficult place to develop in, and a significant part of that is Rice Creek watershed and Forest Lake, Comfort Lake. Because we do have so many wetland areas, so many low areas, so many drainage challenges, that it's not just Forest Lake issues. It's those, and if getting to this could help us in the future to ease the way for certain developments, there's a benefit. That's another benefit to this study.
Any last comments, commissioners? Hearing none, did you get the information you were looking for, Nathan?
Yeah, I think we have some good questions that have been asked, and if there's comments or questions for staff, we're certainly happy to review those if you send them to us.
All right. We're on item 10, our other. We'll run through this fairly quick. We'll start with Administrator Casey.
I have nothing except to welcome our new community, Bill.
Nathan?
No updates for the commission, thank you.
I don't have any additional updates other than Councilmember Monson was on tonight, the Zoom feed, and she did ask me to relay to the that there is a downtown meeting scheduled on Monday in which they'll be kind of looking at the downtown plan. She wanted to share that with you.
Is it the EDA then, or
The
just?
joint EDA council workshop.
EDA, Downtown Committee, and Council?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Kevin?
I'm good, thank you.
Mike?
Good.
Susan?
Good.
I have nothing else. I assume we'll have a meeting in 2 weeks.
Yeah, the 25th, there will be a couple items on that agenda for you.
All right. We're on item 11. Chair's looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Come on.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. I thought everybody might want to stay here. It's a non-debatable motion, so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you all for participating tonight and for your continued service to the commission. I don't want to leave.
I was gonna say, it ain't looking
Somebody
good.
wants to run.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go